Shalom, Gabe Greenberg here, Rabbi of Congregation Beth Israel in New Orleans, Louisiana, learning with you this week the commentary of the Netziv on the Parsha. This week we're looking at Parsha Tzav, and we'll be studying Leviticus chapter 7, verse 11. We're discussing the laws of the korbanot, of the various offerings that were brought on the altar. And here we learn about the korban shlamim and the korban toda. V'zot Torah zevach hashlamim asher yakriv laHashem. This is the teaching of the shlamim offering, which was brought to God. The shlamim offering was a peace offering, which could be brought for a variety of reasons, either to fulfill a vow or as a free will offering. You just feel compelled to bring an offering to God. But then now we're going to learn about a specific type of shlamim, of a peace offering. Im al toda yakrivenu. If the type of shlamim you're bringing is a toda, a korban toda, which means an offering of thanks, toda, a thanksgiving offering to God. The hikriv al zevach toda, chalot matzot. Okay, the next verse continues and says that you bring with the toda offering leavened offerings, chalot matzot, which we know to mean loaf offerings. There's actually 40 of them. So there's a bit of background we're going to have to get into to really dive in. The first piece we have to understand is that a toda offering is a subtype. It's a type of a shlamim. A peace offering is a thanksgiving offering. And what's different about them in terms of what's actually offered is that a toda has these loaf offerings as well alongside. Now the Netziv is going to start his commentary with a question, and he asks on that first verse, verse 11, why does the verse have to tell us asher yakriv laHashem, that you're bringing this peace offering to God? Isn't that extraneous? Of course you're bringing it to God on the altar. And in order to reconcile that question, the Netziv delves into an argument, a Talmudic argument between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yishmael. And the argument is as follows. During the time that the Israelites were wandering in the desert, were they allowed to eat meat outside of the sacrificial context of the Mishkan, of the tabernacle? Rabbi Yishmael says, no. No one was allowed to eat meat other than through sacrifice while in the desert, and it was only when entering into Israel that they were allowed to eat meat outside of the tabernacle context. Rabbi Akiva disagrees, and he says that the Israelites were allowed to eat meat outside of the Mishkan, outside of the tabernacle, outside of sacrificial context, but, and this is quite fascinating, Rabbi Akiva says they weren't allowed to slaughter those animals using ritual Jewish slaughter, which we know today as shchita. Rabbi Akiva says shchita was reserved for the sacrificial context in the altar. If you wanted to eat meat outside of the altar, then you would kill an animal differently, either by somehow slitting it open, cutting its head off. It wasn't pretty. It was called nechira. So he says, this is Rabbi Akiva's position, which seems to be accepted by Maimonides, and actually this is the one that the Netziv is going to work off of. Again, Rabbi Akiva's position in the Gemara and Chulin is that Israelites who wanted to eat meat outside of the sacrificial context could do so, but they just couldn't shecht, they couldn't ritually slaughter. Ritual slaughter was only done, shchita was only done in the approved sacrificial Mishkan context. Got that so far? So if so, let's keep going. Now this is what the Netziv says. He summarizes what I just said. Kiba midbar shenesar lechol basar shchuta b'teavon. In the midbar, it was you weren't allowed to eat meat which was slaughtered in the ritual way just for your own teavon, just because you wanted to eat it. In mishum hachi hutar lahavi shlamim. Oh, And now the Netziv, based on that, comes up with a very interesting chidush, a very interesting, innovative idea that seems it's just his own idea. And I happen to really like it. He says, imagine a person who wants to eat meat in the time, right? An Israelite who's wandering in the desert, and he really wants to eat meat. And he wants to eat meat in what he considers to be the most refined way, or a refined way, which is he wants to ritually shecht, do shchita, this type of Jewish ritual slaughter, which involves crossing a blade across the windpipe, the esophagus, the proper way to do it. But he doesn't feel the highest, most sublime level of spiritual religious impulse of wanting to offer that on the altar. He just wants the meat and he wants to do shchita. But according to Rabbi Akiva and Maimonides, and the Netziv accepts this as well, such a person did not have an option. If they wanted to eat meat and they wanted to ritually slaughter it, the only place to eat that was in the Mishkan, in the context of offering a korban shlamim, offering a free-willed peace offering. So what does this person do? Says the Netziv, Mishum hachi, hutar lahavi shlamim, the Torah allowed the bringing of peace offerings, lemi she'eno rotze b'tachlit hakorban, ela kedei lechol basar. So such a person would bring the offering even though they actually didn't desire the full point, the full tachlis, the full mission of the korban. They didn't feel necessarily a need to connect to God through this bringing. They just wanted to have a burger and they wanted to shecht it properly. The Torah, fascinatingly, allows this person to do that in this context of being in the wilderness. That according to the Netziv, such a person could say, I guess I'll just bring a korban, I'll bring an offering, because that's the only way I'll get to both eat meat and do it in a way that's shechted. Now, what does that have to do with our verse? Remember, the whole question that the Netziv was dealing with was that our verse says, V'zot Torah zevach hashlamim, this is the Torah of bringing a shlamim offering, asher yakriv laHashem, which is going to be brought to God. So now the Netziv is going to, and the next verse was im al toda yakrivenu. It then began to describe the type of shlamim, the toda, namely that it's brought with these 40 loaves of bread, matzah, chametz. Says the Netziv, Ubaha katuv kan lilamed. So therefore, our verse here in Parshat Tzav comes to teach us, de toda ein lehavi al shlamim bamidbar, ela b'shlamim asher yakriv laHashem. This comes to teach us that someone who wants to bring a thanksgiving offering, which again was like the regular shlamim, plus these loaves, which were brought because a person was saying thank you to God for something that happened, whether they were healed from a sickness or they got out of jail or they went on a dangerous journey and survived. The Netziv says that our verse is teaching us that you should not bring a toda offering, a thanksgiving offering, with the shlamim in the desert context, unless it's, to quote our verse, asher yakriv laHashem, unless it's being brought to God, v'lo letzorech atzmo, and not for a person's own desires and to really benefit themselves. It's a very interesting insight of the Netziv, saying that it's true, the Torah allowed a way for a person to eat properly shechted meat in the midbar context. What was that that they had, that outlet? Bring it as an offering. Even if you are not called, you don't feel that impulse to bring an offering, you can do so. But that is not true regarding the korban toda. If you wanted to eat bread in addition to the burger, you wanted the buns as well as the burger, He says you can't do that. The Toda, which is being discussed in the context of these verses, that has to be, quote, Yakriv Lashem, brought to God, meaning for the sake of God, which here means you're bringing the sacrifice because you've bought into the concept of sacrifice here. You have the religious impulse to do so. Now, the Netziv concludes with discussing Rabbi Akiva's opinion a little obliquely, and asking the following question. It's really a question we need to answer. Why would, according to Rabbi Akiva, and as approved by Maimonides, why would it be that we would have this seemingly very odd rule that the Torah would want us to be able to eat meat and do so in a shechted, ritually slaughtered way, that the Torah wants us to control that urge and have it done in the Mishkan? What else did we have such an urge that we were going to want to eat meat and shecht it and not bring it to the Mishkan? What was the Torah worried about? Well, as it turns out, in Vayikra, Yud Zayin, Pasuk Zayin, in Leviticus chapter 17, the Torah in fact mentions that people might have wanted to shecht meat for another purpose, namely to be offered, as the verse over there says, Lis-Irim, to goats, which probably means to goat demons, to goat gods. Let's read the Netziv. Dekol haheter hazeh ena ela mishum shenesar basar taiva kadei shelo yizbachu et zivchehem lis-Irim. This whole allowance that he's been discussing of bringing shechted meat to the altar, even though you didn't really want to bring a korban, but you can do it just so you can eat this shechted meat, is only because it was prohibited to have this other meat, this meat that you just wanted to eat because you wanted meat, in order that you not bring that shechted meat to false gods, But masha'ein kain lechem efshar b'chulin. But that wasn't true by bread. Bread could be eaten outside of the context of the Mishkan. You could just eat bread whenever you wanted to eat bread. And as such, there didn't need to be this religious outlet to say, oh, we have to eat bread in an altar context, even if you don't want to bring it as a sacrifice. So the point here, let's wrap it all up now. The Netziv is saying that there was a general allowance to eat shechted meat in the desert context. And even if you didn't want to bring it as an offering, you were allowed to bring it as an offering, even if your heart wasn't in it, because you just wanted to have shechted meat. Why did that exist? Why did that seemingly very lenient permissiveness regarding an offering, why did that exist? Because there was a worry that if they weren't allowed to eat shechted meat in a non-sacrificial context, then that would lead them to eat shechted meat in a context of avodah zarah, of offering it to a false god. And therefore, the Torah made this allowance. But, and this is what's happening in our verses, a korban toda, a thanksgiving offering, which has these additional loaves of bread, there the Torah did not need to make such an allowance because you could eat bread whenever you wanted. So that is why, to wrap it all up with a nice bow, the Netziv says on our verse in Leviticus chapter 7, verse 11, Zot Torah Zevach HaShlamim, this is the Torah of the Shlamim offering, the peace offering, Asher Yakriv Lashem, which is brought to God, because it's then next going to talk about Im al Toda Yakrivenu, if you're bringing a Toda form of a Shlamim offering, it has to be Yakriv Lashem, truly to God. You have to be feeling the religious impulse of wanting to bring a part of yourself to say thank you to God. You're going to bring meat, you're going to bring bread, and that in such a context must happen in the Mishkan sacrificial context, and you have to feel that you're truly doing this because it's desirous to you and will be desirous to God. So a beautiful description, a beautiful discussion by the Netziv here. I hope you liked it as much as I did, and we will see you next week. Thank you.